G'day, welcome back guys, Gav is here. We are going to do a PSA 1 through 10 grading survey. So I'm going to show you what each grade from PSA 1 through 10 could possibly look like. I've had a couple of questions recently saying, what could my raw card grade at PSA when they open back up? Well, have no fear, Gav is here. We're going to go through every grade 1 through 10 and show you what it possibly could look like. We're going to start with the PSA 1. Alright, so if I can get it to stand. A PSA 1 Poor will exhibit many of the same qualities as a PSA Fair 1.5, but the defects may have advanced to such a serious stage that the eye appeal of the card has nearly vanished in its entirety. A poor card may be missing one or two small pieces that exhibit major creasing that nearly breaks through all layers of the surface of the cardboard, or it may contain extreme discoloration or dirtiness throughout it, may make it difficult to identify the issue or content of the card on its either the front or back. A card of this nature may also show noticeable warping or another type of destructive feature. Now, if I look at this Charizard, and should I say, it doesn't have to be Pokemon cards. If you're looking to grade anything through PSA, it could be a baseball, a hockey, a basketball card, this guide can be used to roughly judge what your cards could look like at getting grades. Now, if I look at this Charizard, I can definitely see some destructive damage in the corners. Nice big scratches throughout the holo in the corners. Got the layers peeling. I don't know if you can see that through the camera, but it's definitely been well played. Well played. This poor card. Poor PSA 1. If I look at the back, I can see damage on the Pokeball. I can see creases through it. Chipping, whitening. This card has seen better days. Such a beautiful card. Unfortunately been damaged through play. But that is what a PSA 1 Poor looks like. You can have creases through it. This particular copy doesn't have creases. Not all cards, not all grades, in the lower grades especially, will look exactly like what it says on the right hand side of the screen. They're just indicators, but that is what a PSA 1 Poor card can look like. It's very hard to get a PSA 1, but even harder than a PSA 1 is a good 2. Good 2, for the life of me, was the hardest grade when I was completing this set. In a Gem Mint 10, 1 through 10, PSA 2, a good 2, was the hardest. So, a PSA good 2 card's corners show accelerated rounding and surface wear is starting to become obvious. A good card may have scratching, scuffing, light staining or chipping of enamel on obverse. There may be several creases. Original gloss may be completely absent. Card may show considerable discoloration. Centering must be 90 to 10 or better on the front and the back. So the centering is now starting to come into effect. Not so much with the PSA 1, but the PSA 2. If I zoom in a little bit, bring it into focus, we can notice that there is a lot better condition upgrades in the corners. Not as bad. It is still evident, a little bit of chipping and whatnot. I'm noticing a little bit of creases, but that's okay. I might see some damage to the card itself. There is an indentation in this Charizard, but for the most part, a much better pickup than the PSA 1. There is still damage, and that's why it's been graded a good 2, but it is still getting better. We keep going. The very good 3, one of the harder grades as well to also get. Okay, so a PSA 3. A PSA 3 very good card reveals some rounding of the corners, though not extreme. Some surface wear will be apparent along the possible light scuffing or light scratches. Focus may be somewhat off-register and edges may exhibit noticeable wear. Much, but not all, of the card's original gloss will be lost. Not all the time. Borders may be somewhat yellowed and or discolored. A crease may be visible. Printing defects are possible. Slight stain may show on obverse and wax staining on reverse may be more prominent. Centering again must be 90 to 10 or better on the front and the back. So, again, condition starting to improve. You can see some scratches in the holographic where the text is down the bottom. But again, not looking too bad. There will be scratches in the holo, definitely down here. But the corners, for the most part, aren't damaged. Especially with the lower grades, it's really hard to look at a raw card, especially if you're new to grading, and knowing, oh, this might get a 7 or this might get a 3. Really, really hard. I didn't know when I first started, so I wish I had something like this when I was first getting into grading. You can see definitely big chipping in the border. Bit of creasing, not too noticeable, but it's there. Chipping, getting better in the corners. PSA 3, very good. Alright, moving on to the very good to excellent 4. Getting up there in the grades. What have we got? A PSA very good to excellent 4. So this is in between very good and excellent. The next one should be excellent. A PSA very good to excellent 4. Cards corners may be slightly rounded. Surface wear is noticeable but modest. The card may have light scuffing or light scratches. Some original gloss may be retained. Borders may be slightly off-white. A light crease may be visible. Centering must be 85 to 15 or better on the front and 90 to 10 or better on the back. So the centering is now really starting to play a big part in grading. Not so much with the lower grades, but it is definitely becoming a little bit more apparent as we get up here. Top to bottom, left to right, and definitely on the back as well. The back, not as much. I think this one's a little bit off-center top to bottom. But if I look at the holographic, definitely some scratches in it. I can get it to show there. Print lines, whatever you want to call it. Print lines on Charizards or most holographics in Pokemon from base at least go from left to right, but that doesn't mean they can't go top to bottom. But this one's got some scratches just there. Again, not too bad on the corners. A little bit of a scratch just there. You might see some silvering on the side, very prominent with the base set, the jungle, the fossil. Jungle specifically for Pokemon. Don't know about other types of sports cards or game cards, but I know it's very hard with the original sets for Pokemon from the Wizards of the Coast. So that is the very good to excellent 4. Alright, moving on to the excellent 5. Okay, well, that glare might be a little bit of a problem. Might take this opportunity while we're fixing these Charizards to say smack that subscribe button if you really enjoy this video. Really help out the channel. Alright, excellent 5. On PSA Excellent 5 cards, very minor rounding of the corners is becoming evident. Surface wear or printing defects are more visible. There may be minor chipping on the edges. Loss of original gloss will be more apparent. Focus of picture may be slightly out of register. Not always. I don't think I've ever seen a Pokemon card where the picture is slightly out of register, but that's, that's okay. Several light scratches may be visible upon close inspection, but do not detract from the appeal of the card. Can't English. Cards may show some off-whiteness on the borders. Centering must be 85 to 15 or better on the front and 90 to 10 or better on the back. So, if we look at this card, we will see scratches in it. That is definite. We can see some silvering down the bottom. No problem. But for the most part, there is no real damage to the card. There could be a little bit of a crease, a little bit of a printing defect, but, those kind of things mainly set up the grade. If you've got multiple of them, you're looking at lower grades. Get a good close-up. A couple scratches just there by his wing. A lot of scratches just there. I'd like to say that this card here was a playground card back in the day here in Australia, but it could have come from overseas. I'm not sure of the original origin of this one because I didn't grade it. We'll put the PSA Excellent 5 next to his brothers. Let's move on to the Excellent to Mint 6. Okay, so the PSA Excellent Mint 6 card may have visible surface wear or a printing defect which does not detract from its overall appeal. A very light scratch may be detected upon close inspection. Corners may have slight gradual fraying. Picture focus may be slightly out of register. Card may show some loss of original gloss, may have minor wax stain on reverse, or may exhibit very slight notching on edges, or may also show some off-whiteness on the borders. Centering is a little bit different on this one. Centering must be 80 to 20 or better on the front and 90 to 10 or better on the reverse. So now we're over halfway. The centering is definitely playing a part. If you have an off-centered card, it will probably get the OC grade here at the top. And that does detract from the overall grade. If I look at the back, Not a bad looking card, definitely some chipping up the top. But pretty much if you have a PSA, if you have a raw Pokemon card, should I say, and it's got a crease, you can pretty much say straight away that it will be a 6 or lower in the grade, only because it can't be a near mint card. It's just impossible. But the cards are starting to really get up there in quality. They just look gorgeous. The centering must be pretty appropriate. Beautiful cards. That is the Excellent to Mint 6. Alright, on to some of the higher end cards now. We have the Near Mint 7. That's what the NM stands for. Probably should have said that at the beginning. A PSA Near Mint 7 card is a card which... A PSA Near Mint 7 is a card with just a slight surface wear visible upon close inspection. There may be slight fraying on some corners. Picture focus may be slightly out of register again. A minor printing blemish is acceptable. Slight wax staining is acceptable on the back of the card only. Most of the original gloss is retained. Centering must be approximately 70 to 30 to 75 to 25 or better on the front, and 90 to 10 or better on the back. So if I look at this card, close inspection, it probably could score the Near Mint to Mint 8. That's the next grade up. But there are a couple of things wrong with this card. The picture isn't out of focus. There isn't really too much wrong with it, but if I look at the back, can definitely see some fraying, some little bits of chipping. Makes it really easy to see on a Pokemon card because they've got that dark blue border on the back of it. But such a beautiful card. The focus, the centering, just beautiful. They are very nice cards. So glad I picked them up when I did, because they are starting to become really expensive and really sought after by collectors all around the world, not just me here in Australia. The third last card, the Near Mint to Mint 8 card. This one's a little bit of a tricky one because there's a couple of different things with it. A PSA Near Mint to Mint 8 is a super high-end card that appears as Mint 9 at first glance, but upon closer inspection, the card can exhibit the following: a very slight wax stain on the reverse, slight fraying at one or two corners, a minor printing imperfection and or slightly white off borders. The centering must be approximately 65 to 35 to 75 to 30 or better on the front, and 90 to 10 or better on the reverse. So they're a little bit lenient somewhat with the off-center, or the what do you call it, the centering is the word I'm looking for. But these are just super high-end cards. You won't see too many scratches in the holographic foil, if at all. You might see one or two little light ones. You won't see any chipping on the corners down the bottom or the top. You won't see anything really wrong with it, but you have to get up really close. You can see that just by looking at this PSA 8 copy, top to bottom, it is off-center, which is okay because it still, I believe, falls within the parameters that the PSA 8 gives us. But it is a beautiful card. Can go right next there to the Near Mint 7. We're going to go on to my favorite one of them all, the Mint 9. And the reason I like this particular copy, this particular card myself, is because I graded this bad boy. This Charizard came from my base set booster box, so this is a very special card to me. Graded it a couple of years back now, if I remember correctly. Alright, so a Mint 9 is a superb condition card that exhibits only one of the following minor flaws: a very slight wax stain on the reverse, a minor printing imperfection or slightly off-white borders. Centering must be approximately 60 to 40 to 65 to 35 or better on the front, and 90 to 10 or better on the reverse. Now, in particular with Pokemon, I don't know about wax staining, but again, as I said before earlier in the video, Charizards, anything from the base, the jungle, the fossil sets, any of the Wizards of the Coast, the original sets had major chipping on the yellow borders. And what I mean by chipping is that you can see the silver on the underneath side, because they were trying to mass print so many cards back in the day, 1999, 2000 dated, that they were just trying to print so many and get them out to distributors and whatnot that they didn't change the blades from what I hear, and they ended up using dull blades to really chop these cards up, to trim them to get them out to production, and unfortunately that's how they've ended up with that silvery border. You can just see it just there. But hey, I graded this bad boy. I pulled this Charizard, never did it as a kid, and it is such a gorgeous card. It's the only card in this 1 to 10 set. Is it the only card? Yeah, no, second. There's only 2 cards in this set that don't have the entire same label, but it is such a gorgeous card. There's the back shot of it if you want to pause and have a look at it in detail, but it is just a gorgeous card. You won't find too much with it wrong. That is the Mint 9 Charizard, and the Holy Grail, what every collector wants to get when they submit to PSA. They want to get the Gem Mint 10. A PSA Gem Mint 10 is a virtually perfect card. That doesn't mean errors don't happen. Attributes include 4 perfectly sharp corners. Now, obviously, Pokemon don't have sharp corners. They have rounded corners. So in this case, you want rounded corners. Sharp focus and full original gloss. A PSA Gem Mint 10 card must be free of staining of any kind, but an allowance may be made for a slight printing imperfection. And what that means is basically there are a couple of examples. I think a Blastoise, for example, or maybe even the Chansey. Anywhere on the card there might be like a little ink dot somewhere, and it might get through, it might slip through PSA, they might not notice it, but for the most part, they normally get picked up, and they normally get the Mint 9 grade, but little dot here or there that doesn't really detract from the card's surface, the eye appeal, the look of the card, even when slabbed or raw, you'll be okay. The image must be centered on the card within the tolerance not to exceed approximately 55 to 45 to 60 to 40% on the front and 75 to 25% on the reverse. It is really, really important that as a Gem Mint 10 copy, even in the higher grades, that the tolerances do not change, that they are very, very strict. So what might appear originally when it gets sent to a grader, when you send a raw card into a grader, might originally look like a Gem Mint 10 card, but it might come back as a Mint 9 only because the centering might be off, or there might be like a really small stain on it. It's really hard to tell. The graders do thoroughly check over the cards to make sure that the grade that they are giving is accurate. They go through 2 sets of hands to make sure that the grade is accurate. These guys know what they're doing. I really, really do love my PSA cards. I really do love my PSA Charizards. That's the 1 to 10 set. That doesn't mean that there aren't other grades. For example, you can get 0.5 grades, like this one, 8.5. I got a Near Mint to Mint Plus. This is in between the Near Mint 8 and the Mint 9. And the 2 graders that when they graded this particular copy, this copy came from Gary King Pokemon from E4. You may have seen him on Pawn Stars trying to sell off his first edition Charizards. He is the man. This particular copy, the graders couldn't decide whether it was a Near Mint to Mint 8 or a Mint 9, so they have given it the 0.5 grade. You can tell it is slightly off-center, or maybe not off-center, but it's definitely shifted left to right, and maybe a little bit top to bottom if I'm being a little bit picky, but overall the card, again, high-end card, looks beautiful. Stunning card, and you can apply these cards to, or the grades to any card. It doesn't matter what card you're trying to grade. You can use this video, you can pause it. I'm gonna have the annotations on the right hand side. Please give this video a like. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Until next time, Gav out.